All right. I want to introduce the panel for today, and we still have one more waiting in the wings right over here. Paige Dower back with us. Paige, thanks for being here.
Good to be back.
Will West right here. Mark Pankratz, of course, former D1 basketball player, former assistant coach at Tennessee. Mark, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Tyler Ivins right there. Appreciate you being here. And Tyler and Will, I will see you tomorrow. We'll be doing radio. People can hear us. Where are we? Rusty Wallace Kia?
We are,
Honda?
yeah. I think we're in Honda tomorrow.
Okay, Honda. And Paige Dower, people can find you at Full Disclosure Productions on YouTube.
Yep. And on our website, fulldisclosurepro.com.
There you go. All right. And soon on the Sports Source Digital Network.
Of course.
Right. Rick Barnes and his Vols yesterday won 85. Well, they won 85-81 against Missouri earlier in the week. Then they followed that up yesterday with a 70-52 blowout of Oklahoma. Barnes praised his team for the fact that, one, he loved the team defense, which they brought it, held Oklahoma to 30% shooting. We show you the shot charts every week. Take a good look, because it's one of the rare days when you're going to see Tennessee in all red and the other team all blue. But he was praising the defense. Also praised the fact they came out hot. They shot early, built a lead, and never let go. There's your box score from yesterday if people want to take a look at that. But, Mark, let me get your takeaways from yesterday's game.
Well, I was going to say Barnes is rubbing off, and you start with all the defensive side of things. I thought it was fun to finally watch some basketball where we're making shots. Our offense, there was more freedom, even more flow to the game, even in the Missouri basketball game. But I think, when you saw Cade Phillips, the way that he was plus-minus, Darlington Stone plus-minus, you talk about the depth of this team that we don't have much. Those guys showed up. Felix blocking shots, and we're going to get to talking about Igor and Zakai, obviously, and guys making shots. But I think it's that position, that interior side, when it's Igor, that 4 position with Cade and Darlington Stone, and then Akbar. Those are the guys that if they're stepping up and being able to give us a little bit offensively and defensively, this team becomes a potential Final Four team type team.
And Milicic had a game for the ages. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but on last week against Missouri, he was the first player this century to score this many, rebound this many, have this many assists, shoot this percentage. It was literally you never see that. It was a golden goose kind of a day. But the way they're playing right now, Will, they seem to have gotten off the schneid, but it is college basketball, so you never know when you come back to the schneid. Your thoughts on where this team is right now and how they're playing?
I think Zakai's not shooting them out of games, and I think that's a good thing. He's hitting shots. He's also better with shot selection right now. Zakai on the season, when he hits his assist total or his assist average, Tennessee's lost one game all year when that's happened. They're under 500 when he has fewer assists. So he's hitting shots after 10 of 11 games where he shot below 40%. Last 2 games is over 50% shooting. And I think he's taking better shots as well. But just the threat of Zakai being able to hit those shots, that helps. I think working the ball inside out helps Zakai. Yeah. So I think that's the biggest thing is let Zakai play where his strengths are, which is defense and being a distributor.
And I think keeping it in the offensive vein as well, 13 points in the first 5 minutes was their best start since Norfolk. Their next best was, I think, 10 points against Vanderbilt. So they've not had an offensive start like that all SEC play. And I think that's been a huge talking point is while you have the defense, your offense is keeping you out of these games. And then they go on to, I think, make 6 of their first 5 attempts. Their 3-pointers are up in back-to-back games. So having their offense finally match their defensive efforts was really exciting to see these last couple of games.
I like to refer to what Tennessee does defensively as a python. If you watch any of those National Geographic shows, whenever a python finds its victim and it tries to shake loose, it just gets tighter and tighter until you just essentially pass out and it has its victim. When Tennessee's hitting shots, it makes other oppositions take low percentage shots, more threes, panic. They start going up and down the floor. Porter Moser's team loves getting up and down transition. Tennessee stops the transition buckets. They find a way to cut down your possessions 2, 4, 6 at a time. Oklahoma sees the scoreboard go down 8, down 12, down 16. You're done at halftime. Tennessee puts you to bed in the second half. Defense has never at any time trickled away, but when they're hitting shots to that level, and we're not going to see that shot chart ever again, but at this what they're doing right now with Florida, Missouri, and what they're doing against Oklahoma, if this carries over to Rupp on Tuesday, Tennessee might be on to something right
and
now.
now from the coaching side, as you're preparing for a team, as you're preparing to play Tennessee,
right.
Now all of a sudden you're putting the thought in the guy's mind of, all right, I can't over-rotate on penetration because they are starting to make some shots.
Yep.
Whereas the couple weeks before this, we were rotating, or the other teams were rotating the paint, making Zakai finish over contested, and we weren't hitting threes, so they could leave guys wide open. So we're moving in that right direction for sure. And I do think it's a lot to do with Zakai.
Yeah, and if you look at it, though, I get concerned that winning's a great deodorant, right? You have 2 fast break points the last 2 games. 2. That's not ideal. I think Tennessee needs to be able to run some. But if you're hitting jump shots like they're hitting right now, I just don't know that Chaz, the start that he had, I don't know if that's something you can count on consistently. But again, you're changing the way, as Mark said, you're changing the way teams have to defend you.
Well, right now, the last 3 games, I'm producing the show while hosting it. You didn't throw out these numbers in that first answer, did you? Okay, because I was trying to figure out, okay, we got a graphic up. My apologies. We talked about this before the show. Tennessee points in the paint the last 3 games. And this is, you've looked good the last 3 games.
Right.
I don't think this is a coincidence. Against Florida, they were plus 20. Against Missouri, they were plus 16. Against Oklahoma, they were plus 16. The last 3 games, they're plus 52 points in the paint.
That's a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, that 3-game stretch.
Yeah.
Because if you can put the Python analogy defensively on them, right? If you can strangle them
People at the
defensively,
Knoxville Zoo like this.
and then on the offensive end, you can put pressure on their defense because you're attacking the paint and not settling for perimeter jump shots.
Right.
Now you're wearing them down on both ends, and eventually they're going to fold at the end of the game.
Here's an interesting stat that ties back to their defense more than you would think this would be an offensive stat. We always talk around here for years about Tennessee and their long scoring droughts. CBB Analytics is actually tracking that this year, and Tennessee's one of the lowest in terms of having a scoring drought where the other team goes on an 8-0 run. That's the way they're marketing it. But in terms of the other way around, having 8-0 runs, Tennessee is not a great scoring basketball team. We would all agree they're not a great shooting team. So you wouldn't think they would lead the SEC in terms of 8-0 runs, but they do, which speaks to their defense, not their offense. I think that's, it goes back to the Python mentality. That defense will choke you out while they're taking 16 trips to put up 8 points, but they're getting those 8-0 runs.
The other thing is this team is a hot and cold team, right? Like when we're feeling good, when we're making shots, we can make a lot. We saw it yesterday. When we're not making shots, we really struggle. And that's the hesitancy with this team is, have we learned going to the NCAA tournament, do we not fall into one of those times where we just don't make shots?
Right.
Well, I think what's really impressive about the defense, so 4 of their last 5 games, they've held their opponents to the fewest scoring that they've had all season. And then before Missouri, their last 4 opponents were all top 17 in scoring offenses, but held them all to below their season averages. And I think that's just a huge testament to how their defense is really feeding their offense.
Still number 1 in defensive efficiency, but to speak to what Mark's concerned about, if you go to Ken Pomeroy, they're 33rd in offensive efficiency, and you usually see those teams that make it to the Final Four are teams that are top 10 in both. To be 1 in defense, to be 1 in offense and 33 in defense, it's really good. Hard to win a title that way. To be 1 in defense and 33rd in offense, hard to win a title that way. It's really good, but you need it both ends. And right now, I think you're probably drawing up what happens in the tournament. But you could say that for 67 teams.
Yeah.
You're going to go cold. You're dead after that night. All right. Let me tell you what's coming up. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Vols seeding situation. There's talk about them being a number 1 seed. We'll get into that. But first, as many of you know, there was a tragedy with tornadoes in the community just this past week, and we need your help on something. Tyler.
Thank you, John. I appreciate a few moments. Thursday night, as many of us know, over in Morgan County, there were devastating storms that tore through the neighborhood. Many of these communities, many of these businesses, they're going to be taking weeks and months to recover, repair, and try to build from what was left behind. There's one individual out there. It's going to take a lot longer than that. His name is Eric Smith. Eric returned home that night to no home and the loss of both his daughter and his wife. I know this because Eric Smith has been a family friend of mine for over 28 years. He's lost everything in the last 96 hours. There have been tireless nights. There have been phone calls. There have been many unanswered questions. And I know how remarkable this community is. Both of us, Eric and myself, grew up here, and we call this place home. If you have anything that you can do in any way, shape, or form that you can to assist this man and the family for what was left behind after Thursday evening's tragedy, the GoFundMe page, as you can see there, the link is on your screen. And I'm going to give credit where credit is due to the guy who hosts this show. He has already made a donation, and it means an absolute world to me. So if there's anything you can do, everything is right there in front of you, in front of the screen, and it would mean the absolute world, not only to me, but to the community there in Morgan County.
You can help this family. The survivor is the husband, the father, and the stepson, and they lost the mother and the daughter there. We'll be back on the Sports Source.